Hey everyone, it's Jake at Jake's Metal Chat. Hope you're all well and welcome to episode 43 of my Metal Vault, where I will be exploring and showing you my favorite albums within heavy metal to thrash metal to death metal, black metal, doom metal, sludge metal, folk metal, you name it, all of that excellent stuff, as well as talking about the album. I will also be talking about the band, any releases before the album that I have picked for this episode, and also a little bit of history. And this album, no question, an absolute banger of an album. One hell of a band from Germany. And Germany has a lot of awesome bands, ranging from thrash metal and heavy metal, and of course, death metal and folk metal. Just this goes on. Of course, when you think of Germany, of course, what I think about is Creator, Sodom, Tankard, and Destruction, the big four of the German thrash metal scene. You know, those four bands just absolutely monumental for thrash metal. But the band I got here is death metal. This is Morgoth. And these guys, sadly, are no longer going. They disbanded in 2020, so 4 years ago, but left behind a legacy. And you're going to know this album, to all you veterans out there. You're going to know this one. Anyone brand new, you're not going to have a clue. But this is why I do this series, for anyone that is interested in finding out new bands and more albums to listen to. So once again, this is Morgoth. This is their 1991 debut, Cursed. And of course, before I talk about the band, let's have a look inside the CD. So, of course, we got the CD there. Picture of the band right there. This is a re-release because it's got live stuff from, let's double check here, in Frankfurt in 1991 on the 9th of September. So once again, here is the artwork. And the band again. And oh yeah, this release, of course, you got all that, the lyrics, and also you get this really cool death metal shot right there. This cool band photo. Yeah, I found out about these guys around the time I was getting into more death metal bands, so and glad I found them because they've become one of my favorites in death metal. And of course, another death metal band that I think of from Germany, Flesh Crawl. You know, monumental death metal. These guys definitely. They formed in 1987, and I'm not even. I think it's pronounced Mercedes. I might have just said that wrong. Looks like it's spelt that right. If I butchered that, I'm totally sorry about that. Again, pronunciation skills not the best. But before they were called Morgoth, they were called Cadaverous Smell. But not entirely sure when they were called that because obviously he's a Metallum, it has a question mark, so I have no idea. Then 1985 they were called Exterminator, and then 1985 to 1987 they were called Minas Morgul. From those years of 85 to 87, and then of course 87 became Morgoth. But a lot of people are going to know that name because it's the name, but it's the nickname of a very famous character from Lord of the Rings. Very famous within the world of Lord of the Rings, J.R.R. Tolkien. They're big fans of Tolkien. You can definitely tell. And of course, the label that they're on. Of course, it was released by Century Media when it was first released on the 24th of April. So that was 2 days ago, but in the year of 1991. So this album is now 33 years old. And oof, what an album. Now, before this was even an album, like I said, I talk about the band, so a little bit of history. They they have a demo from 1988 called Pits of Utumno, which which had 6 tracks, 3 tracks on each side. So if it was cassette, side A, side B. That was released in June of 1988. Not entirely sure when in 1998, but nonetheless released. Then, of course, the EP from 1989, Resurrection Absurd. Really, really cool EP. I do have it, along with the other EP that they did, The Eternal Fall from 1990. But also that same year, they did a compilation with both The Eternal Fall and Resurrection Absurd. Both excellent EPs. If you haven't heard them yet, do check them out. But for you die-hard death metal fans, I know you're gonna know those 2 EPs, and for fans of Morgoth in general, yeah, they just they knew how to write some really good death metal here, and this album is a testament to that, because the lineup was on this album a 5-piece, but before that they were a 4-piece. Because Mark, the vocalist on this album, played bass on the previous releases. So Pits of Utumno, Resurrection Absurd, and The Eternal Fall. And I've seen live footage of him playing bass and doing vocals. Really, 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 yeah, he could play bass. And then, of course, he switched from just doing bass and vocals to just doing vocals. And of course, they got Sebastian on bass for this album and for the remainder of the band, for however long he was in the band for. Okay, so he played bass in 1990 to 1998, and then guitar from 2010 to 2020. Yeah, 2010 to 2020. Of course, one of the members that was still in the band at the time, the original member, and I think it's pronounced Howard. Of course, he's been in the band since the very beginning, and then there was a Costin. Of course, he passed away back in 2018. Rest in peace, brother. He also managed Sentence and Therian. Busy man now. Of course, he was on this album, the second album, and the third album, and then he left in 98, came back for a bit in 2010. The drummer, I cannot say his name, is like Rudiger. Let's say Rodiger, just for now. Was the drummer from 87 to 98. So from the band in the very beginning. And of course, going back to Mark, was in the band from, did bass from 87 to 1990, but did vocals from 87 to 1998. Came back in 2010, left in 2014. But he's in other bands. One that a lot of you will know, but for those who don't, check these guys out as well. Insidious Disease, which has a great powerhouse of names within the in within death metal and grindcore and black metal and so on and so forth. But let's crack on with talking about this album. But like I said, it's a re-release, so it's got this. If anyone watching this was there at the time, comment down below and tell me what was your overall experience like. But let's talk about this. Really, really great death metal right here. Excellent death metal. You start off with obviously the instrumental, which is the title of the album, Cursed. Nice little horror movie-esque opening. And then that goes straight into the first song, Body Count, which is just you got the guitar, the drums, and the bass right there. Really, really great opening song. Of course, you had the intro, but then obviously that's the first song on the album, so a great opening there. Then Exit to Temptation, which is the second longest track on there, because the first one is track number 8, is the first longest. Again, solid song to continue the album on. Then Unreal Imagination. Again, just solid throughout. With all the instruments, the vocals, Mark's vocals. Sometimes he'll do like a growl, but he mainly did like the screamy, raspier type of vocals that you would sometimes hear in death metal. You know, you don't, like another prime example, one who does vocals like that, Martin Van Drunen. And of course, first time I heard death metal, obviously I heard like gutturals and stuff, but then I heard John Tarley do something along the lines of what Mark and Van Drunen do, and it works very well for the style that they're doing. And track number 5, which is how I got into this band, because I watched a music video of theirs, which was them at a festival, and I can't think which one it is at the moment. The song Isolated, great little, somewhat doom-esque opening to the song. And then it just goes straight in there. You get Mark's scream after the last little bit of the intro. And then Soul Baptism, just carrying on the heaviness and the relentlessness, and then straight in after that is Suffer Life, which is another one of my favorite tracks, along with Isolated and Body Count. And Mark screams, especially for the last bit when he goes Suffer Life, and then the lyrics after that, which I'm just going to get them up because they're really cool. So he goes Suffer Life, propagated genocide. When he screams genocide, it's just, man, the pipes behind that. And then Opportunity is Gone, which is 7 minutes and 21 seconds long. And bit I know they're not Death Doom as such, but that's quite a Death Doom song because of how slow it is, not overly slow, bit more tempoed than when you hear Death Doom, sometimes it's really slow, but then not have like that sort of mid-tempo in there. So it's kind of like that. And then the last one is Darkness, which is a cover up from a band called A Warning, who I'm not too familiar with, or I've looked them up before. I'm just being stupid. But and that's a great way to end the track because it's a bit more kind of like the last track. And then after that, it just fades, and then that's the end of the album. And it all clocks in at 40 minutes and 2 seconds long. So great. So you got the instrumental, the intro, and then straight into the first song. And yeah, these guys knocked it out of the park. Definitely knocked it out of the park. And now looking at the people who helped like produce it, record it, the one who was mixing it was Randy Burns. Now I have put up his name before. I think I might have brought his name before, but I have clicked on his name to see what else he's done, if I haven't mentioned him already. So this might be the first time I'm mentioning Randy Burns, who's done so many different bands, like producing, recording, engineering. So Dark Angel, he did Dark Angels, Darkness Descends, cracking album. Death, Scream, Bloody Gore. So I might mention him in that one, but just in case I haven't, mention him again. Creator, Extreme Aggression, and Coma of Souls, as well as People of the Lie single. Megadeth, P Cells, but who's buying, as well as some singles and no, just P Cells, who's buying, and Wake Up Dead. Morgoth, of course, Cursed. Mortal Sin, cracking Australian thrash metal band right there. Did the first out the first album or the second album, I'm not entirely sure on that. Let me just double check that. First album, no, second album, sorry. And EPs and stuff. No, sorry, lost a bit. Singles, EP, two singles, EP. Nuclear Assault, The Game Over, Survive, Handle with Care, Possessed, Seven Churches, Suicidal Tendencies, and Uncle Slam, Virus, uh, Zoe Trope. I think I said that one, but but I've heard those guys very recently at Black City Records, and a really cool band. So I have Randy Burns helping out with the mixing of the album. In terms of the cover art, that's someone called Derek Rudolph, who has done artworks for Apocalyptica, who I will be seeing later this year for albums and singles. Asphyx, Crush the Cenotaph EP, Atrocity, Deep Purple, Creator, Iced Earth, Morgoth, of course, Paradise Lost, Scorpions, Tiamat. So, got a good mixture of bands from various different genres within rock and metal. For the artwork, for like the additional side, was someone called S. Martens, but only did it for logo for Morgoth and additional artwork for this album. And well, there's a lot. Siggy, I think it's pronounced Siggy. He did the recording for this album, and as well for as many other bands on this list. Creator again, Luna Coil, Moonspell. So good selection there. Rotting Christ, Samael, Sentenced, who I've mentioned earlier, Sodom, who I have also mentioned earlier, The Gathering, Therion, who I've also mentioned, Tiamat, of course, mentioned as well, Unleashed. So good selection there. So they're in good hands for when it came to recording and producing the album. And the next one is Derek. I think it's pronounced Derek, D-I-R-K. I'm going to say Derek for now. Of course, this album mixing and producing, and also for Tiamat as well. But yeah, there's so many people that worked on this album. And our additional one was Torsten. Torsten was the vocalist in Dark Millennium. I think it's pronounced Dark Millennium, yeah. As well as doing cover art layout. So good hands here. For the logo as well. And last but not least, we have Robert Komp. I think that's pronounced Kampf. He was in a band called Despair. Music stuff for, once again, we got Asphyx, Comic Con, Demolition Hammer, Grave, Iced Earth, Samael, as well as Morgoth, Tiamat, Unleashed. This goes on, so in good hands for this release. Now, for anyone not too familiar with Morgoth, like I said, they haven't been a band since 2020. That's when they ended it, but I'm so glad I got to see them when I did at here in Bristol. But before that, I saw them in the Netherlands at the Erotic Death Fest, the last one in 2015. And then I saw them, I'm going to say 2016, when they were on tour with Incantation, which two of my favorite death metal bands right there. Seeing these guys at the venue, like I just mentioned, the Beer Killer, it's no longer here anymore, which is gutting because it was a really cool venue, which hosted a lot of different bands, ranging from thrash to death to black metal, doom metal, heavy metal, folk metal, and of course had a all-day death metal festival called, ironically, Bristol Death Fest, which I went to both days, and it was excellent. Yeah, this band, man, this band just wrote, recorded an excellent debut. And I'm glad I own this album because it is an album that, like many of the others I've mentioned, it all stand the test of time. It's 33 years old. 33 years old. And it still sounds awesome. It sounds awesome to me. It's a classic death metal album, classic German, old school German death metal. And there's so many more bands that I can recommend from Germany as well. Like I mentioned, Flesh Crawl. You know, these guys, Flesh Crawl, there's so many more, but in terms of like old school, those two. And just for like, you know, early 90s death metals, like I was talking to David from Black City Records because he did play I think it was the Eternal Fall EP. And we're talking about the golden age of death metal, and he said 89 to 93. So this is 91, so it's right in the middle of that. And I'm not going to say this album was overlooked. It might have been overlooked because like other bands releasing albums at the same time, but it got released on Century Media Records, and they're quite a famous label, along with like Earache, Peaceville, Nuclear Blast, which is what Dismember's first album was released on, like an Everphone Stream, which I've got mentioned in the last video. But yeah, a lot of bands releasing albums at that time. Like I said, that album was released the same year as this. So you had a lot of excellent albums coming out in 91, not just death metal, but um thrash and heavy metal and doom and sludge, so on and so forth. And this this album is in that list as one of the best, in my opinion. Just on how the songs are structured and just how fierce and nasty it is. You know, well done to all the guys for creating such a sick, brilliant album. So much more I can say about it, but my overall conclusions, of course, as you know, if you watch these videos, you know I tend to chat a little bit more after that. But in terms of an album that came out in 91, there was a lot of great ones. This is just one of many. So many more. And one of my favorites from that year, and of course that was the year I was born, but I wasn't born around the time this album was released. So yeah, well, I share a birth year with this album and many others that came out in '91. But either way, here's my conclusions. It's heavy, it's fierce, it's quite thrashy in some areas, I think. Like when it picks up a little bit, that tempo, those fast tempo parts, quite thrashy. That's just me. It's well executed. It's well mixed and mastered and produced. Everyone plays so well with their respective instruments, and of course, Mark's vocals just it's just that that icing on the cake, so to speak. And that all important word, timeless masterpiece. And it will be a timeless masterpiece. And of course, that's what I'm going to say for every album that I will be sharing in this series. This is the 43rd album that I've said is a timeless masterpiece. And well, even if I haven't said it in my last few videos, is implied and is in. And I didn't even have to say timeless masterpiece. I could have just said with all the things and saying it's implied that is a timeless masterpiece and an absolute classic in death metal in that golden age, golden era of death metal. 80, 1993. Some might disagree with that, but everyone's entitled to their own opinions. But I think a lot of us can agree who are massive death metal fans. You know, just love death metal. We'll agree this is an excellent, excellent, excellent debut from an excellent, excellent band. It's a shame they're not going anymore, but they left behind a legacy with this album. I haven't heard their second album. I do have their EP, which I need to get. What's it called? Sorry, not EP, single. God is Evil. And it was their last copy, and all the members that were in the band at that time, the current members. So their vocalist, Costin, was in another band called Disbelief, but in his voice was very similar to Mark's on here. Of course, he was vocalist from 2014 to 2020. Mark Rain, drums from 2011 to 2020. Same with, I'm not going to try and say the bassist's name. I think it's pronounced So Tenos. Tenos. Let's just say bass 2011, 2020. And of course, the only two members are Howard and Sebastian. I think I said the guitarist's name wrong, but I'm just going to stick with it and hopefully someone corrects me. That was they all signed the EP, even though half of them were not on that EP. Anyway, well, I say half of them, like obviously the ex drummer Mark, obviously as well. And in terms of like, obviously it's got the demo, but in terms of like where it all stuck, where the Sam was developing, it started with this album, and I highly recommend it. Morgoth and Cursed, excellent, excellent death metal. You got to listen to it because it's such a brilliant album from an excellent band. Like I said, they're not going anymore, but they left behind one hell of a legacy, and that is the end of another episode of my Metal Vault. I got 3 more to do on here. 2 spaces are still blank because I'm trying to think what other albums I haven't spoken about yet, and go from there. but there's so many more, not just from the 80s and 90s, but early 2000s, and then I'm going to start with the 70s and late 60s as well, because some albums will have that, that heavy metal sound, even though it's not heavy metal, but heavy nonetheless. And this is why I make these videos, especially this series, so people can find out about albums like this from bands either that are still going or not going anymore. And you know, all the newer, younger fans out there who are not too familiar with someone like Morgoth, you can come to this video, learn a bit about him, find out about the demos, EPs, their debut, and listen to it. And you can make your own mind up, see what you think. But if you love your death metal, this is definitely up your street. So once again, Morgoth and Cursed. Now, to all of you veterans out there, you know this album. And of course, you're going to just see more albums and be like, I know it. Or you might be like, overlook that one, but started listening to it recently and love it. So all of you newcomers, thank you for tuning into this video, as well as you veterans as well. And, coming onto my channel, watching this series. And to all of you out there, veterans and newcomers alike, I know I say those two words a lot, but still, don't forget to like this video, share it around, comment down below if you want to say anything about the album, about the band, any bands similar to them that you've heard very recently, or there's a band that sounded similar to them back in the day, or when you saw them live, what was your overall experience? And most importantly, don't forget to subscribe to keep up with everything I'm doing here on this channel, this series, as well as other series. Still got to do the other videos that I said I was going to do at some point. Just been busy with a lot of stuff lately, and that's it from me. Thank you for watching another episode of my Metal Vault. I've been Jake of Jake's Metal Chat. You keep that banner of metal held high, and I will see you all again in my Metal Vault.